All right. So, hello everybody. Welcome to a supplement to our one composition a day until we're all dead, number 7. There's Draco. That was Draco. Hey, show me you got your haircut. Which is not necessarily the easiest thing to do.
No, when we're quarantined.
Right. Mom cut it?
Yeah.
So, did she actually have James on? James is the guy who normally cuts his hair. He was on Skype?
Yeah, I was on FaceTime. Yeah.
FaceTime, and he just like guided her through it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy. I would not have been as brave, but that's cool.
Good. We don't have any dislikes yet.
We will. We will. And it's you, just so you know. It's you they don't like. Floby. Oh, wow. Floby was like this thing. It was like clippers on a vacuum. You just like turn on a vacuum and you just vacuumed people's heads and it clipped them off. No, it's a real thing. It was called Floby.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, so a little supplement to today's composition, because people were like, "Well, what was that about?" And there's actually something to say about it. I mean, I guess hopefully there's always something to say about it, but in this case, there was legitimately something to say, which is, first of all, there's some through lines that are going to be in all these compositions that are intentionally so. Like one of them is that you see that I'm taking a single motif or an idea, some sort of pattern, and what is that? And repeating it and milking it and arranging it and showing how far you can stretch the thing. And in this case, that little rhythmic idea, as much as anything, both the motion and the rhythm idea are central to the piece, and that's the thing that takes my brain out. So as I'm going along, that becomes my anchor. Like, okay, well, we have to do that, is basically what I'm saying. Well, it's got to be that rhythm. It's got to be something similar to that. And I've been doing that in every piece. Partially to just demonstrate that you can take a simple idea or a simple thing and get a lot of mileage out of it. Partially that, but also to show that when you have something simple like that, that makes it a lot. It makes it easier to write, but it also doesn't really limit you in terms of how far you can stretch it. That being said, one thing that's different about the piece that I did today is it's got a lot more of the stuff that I just personally like to work on. And I'll tell you what I do now. The most fun thing for me is finding the most comfortable ways to get between uncomfortable places. So, this part, none of that is very uncomfortable, and it continues not uncomfortable for a while, very, very deliberately to warm people up to it. But I ended up into a place where I was in D major, and I just wanted to get back to F. And and some of that brute force is the spirit of the piece. But I can just tell you that that's what I was working on as I was coming. When I had done this part where I had gone. Let's see. And I was like, how am I getting back? And I know I could just do that, but using a C, if you listen to the piece, I did this. I went, and I used the C because that's where I wanted to go if I put it over the C. So I was using the C in the bass to kind of buy me a little extra transition. I don't know if this is making sense. So in that case, just, that's one example in that piece of how I was trying to figure out how can I get from that to that. Another piece was at this end here where I was doing let's see, what I went to. All of that is a very tortured way of getting to so and none of it bothers me. I know that a lot of what's in that piece can kind of do this to people, but that's actually all the terror. That's what I do now. Is I'm always trying to find what's the way to get around things that are uncomfortable and make them somehow palatable, or is it close to palatable as not? But I can tell you that any of the little left turns or left weirdness in this little piece, today's piece, don't actually bother me in any way. In other words, they don't require me to adjust to them. They all feel natural to me now after this many years, and I recognize that that's not how most people feel about them. So I just wanted to see, just without really overthinking it or changing it for your sake, just kind of doing what I have no problem with. Could I still make it palatable? Because none of that stuff, at some point, things that there's not a direct, brute force stuff stopped bothering me. I don't know when that happened, but there was some point at which. So trying to find the anchors, the ways in which I can connect things together, and then things that, how did you end up with a half, when you're... Which is fine, but it's more palatable to me when it's over the third. It just is. But that's what I like. I like, God, that shouldn't work. How does that work? But I also like when there's a contrast between something that's so almost childlike. In some ways, just that motion is sort of it's a contrast to how simple and childlike the actual idea is. What's up, pal? What's up? You're sneaking in? But when I had first done, in fact, that's how the melody originally started when I first wrote the piece. It just went right into that. And then I thought, that's a little early, which is why I saved that for the second time and did. Because that's easy. People will stay with you. Even though my original idea just went into the heavier one. But I did that version of it. And then I just had to finish it out. Yeah, we're okay. In a lot of ways, that sort of shouldn't work, but that's what I dig, is if you can make that work. That's the first time you ever really get the tonic, by the way, on that. And that's another thing I talk about too, is saving. The tonality is kind of obscure in here. That's the first note. Is it that what it is? I saved that. I saved that B flat for a while. So we go from F, what is that, F or B flat to C without really any traditional methods of setting up a 5-1. We're sort of there, we're in G and then D and B flat and F and C. We're all within the space of a very, very, very short run. And I just like the idea that if you set up enough other things, people will roll with that. And I keep going. So I just liked the idea of this is the sort of thing that I dig, just myself. Like how right on the line, and it's actually also on the line of transportability, because you may even find yourself whistling. But when you start getting to or you can't. It's almost. It starts to sound really weird because it's just too obscure. The tonality's too obscure. So I like also. Can we even dance right inside those things that I generally consider sacrosanct for connecting with an audience? But anyway, that's all that stuff that was going on. Somebody said, Mike, I bought the live brass masterclass the other day and just wanted to say it was a phenomenal educational experience and so insightful. Well, thank you. I agree, and I would love to say that was all because of me, but them's some monstrous players, no? I wish you could do more of these for the other sections. Well, that's been the plan. Like I said, I think it's a more expensive class, deservedly so. I mean, it's not though. It's like priced what other things are priced. But it's worth it. It's just worth it, and it seems to be enough that people are like, I don't really need that. But the truth is, if I had to I've said this before, if I had to get rid of all the classes and only keep one, that's the one I'd keep. Anyway, so like I said, today's piece, very simple and all that stuff, but definitely the purpose of the piece today was to try to see how far I could push things and still make them palatable, even though we're moving around a lot, while still everything keeps reinforcing that rhythmic pattern for that melody, which makes it easier when you do that. Anyway, so are you modulating via common tones? Yes and no. Sometimes because say when I get to this point, it's a D. I could just go. That's not the worst thing. Even though is really what's going on, right? But I decided to do that because it's more like a 5-1. It's kind of a Lydian thing. So that's not a common tone, except I made it a common tone by putting it in the bass. But instead of even going to the 1, I just stayed on that. So I brute forced a common tone. And that happens again later. I could have gone, but I went. And that is because now this concept I've introduced as part of the vocabulary. It was just here, right? It was just here, and now it's here. And I'm going to do that whole thing in a minute. So that figure itself now becomes a pattern and an anchor. So it's pulling double and triple duty. in addition to giving me a sort of forced common tone to make that a little more palatable, it's also starting to build into the vocabulary of the piece this concept, which I'm going to use later. And believe it or not, even though people may not realize it, that's part of why when that figure happens later, it's not as jarring as you might think, because that tonality has actually already been established in places. It's really on the nose when I'm going, or I mean, that's very on the nose. But it's actually just something I've already established in the piece. So the initial idea was the melody, or did I start with the harmonic ideas? It was just this. I mean, this is how it started. Then it was good. That was one of my first ideas. I could have gone there, but I was like, no. Instead of just going, can I get back there? Yeah, if I wanted to stop, but can I do that and still keep going? So it was just experimenting with that. Can I make that work? So yeah, it started like that, and then the other stuff came out of it, and in a lot of cases, you know, this thing where I was doing this, and then later this. I discovered those things early in the piece and then decided to recruit those later in the piece because I had established a thing, and I didn't want those just to be some weird little thing in the beginning. If I'm going to do something like that, I'm always looking to make my job easier. So it's like, well, that's another thing I've now put into the harmony of this piece. Let's use that, and that'll answer. And so now as I'm going on to other little things, it's like, is this a good time for that? Yeah, it's perfect time for that. That'll get me out of a few things. And it's pretty tortured in here. But it's also not. That little thing, those little internal voices, which are mirroring the original idea, those write a lot of those clear a lot of sins because suddenly it makes it seem intentional, which I mean it was, except it wasn't, because I just wanted to. I just like the idea of that. How can I make that natural? And by the way, this piece ends pretty early and suddenly. It could have gone on and on and on. It was already coming up on 2 minutes, and that's enough for a day. But a piece like this actually has a ton of mineability in it because of its complexity. With the current 40% off, it's not that expensive. Oh yeah, it's the brass time. Yeah, that's time to get it. I had a great moment the other day. I have worked on my musical knowledge, but I've always hesitated to transcribe, okay, because I've always told myself I have a terrible ear. Well, that's how you get a good ear. But the other day I was listening to a piece and it was something I really liked, so I finally said, fuck, it's just time to start. And guess what? I picked out the melody and chords. Well, first of all, congratulations and good for you. And yeah, that's the doorway, man. That's the power tip of power tips is transcribe. So yeah, man, go do that. Do as much of that as you can. That'll keep growing. And increase your power just by orders of magnitude. Because remember, somewhere, I mean, you're hearing stuff, somewhere it's in your brain, you know? I think a lot of us experience, certainly I do, where I hear the whole piece. I can hear it. It's in here, I can hear it. and then there's this process of trying to manually work it out on the hands, where you're trying to like, but what am I hearing? And then if you're not careful, if you take too long, then what you do with your hands will fuck it up, and then you can't remember what was in your brain. That's part of the advantage of developing a good ear and an internal ear, is that there's less time between the inspiration in that perfect zone in your brain and the actual externalization of it on the piano, and so you can capture more ideas like that. So in order to improve that, you transcribe and just generally get in the process of hearing a thing and bringing it out. That's just a crucial. It's a nice party gag too, you know. I mean, that's what. Can you play this? Let me hear it, and yeah, give me a minute. That's just a nice thing to be able to do just as a musician, you know, to be able to say, yeah, I can play that. I mean, within reason. So we play Flight of the Bumblebee. Can you play that? No. It'll take a while. But yeah, that's just a really important part of the process. It's the most important skill, transcription, man, and it'll teach you things and build an understanding beyond the transcription itself. So, but in a lot of ways, my composition process feels more like a recreation than a creation process. I heard the whole thing in my head; it happened, and then when I actually sit down, what I'm actually saying is, now, what was that? How did that go? Because that's how I know to make choices. Actually, I think that's what we all do. If you're going in a place, and anything would be fine. You could go from here to, or here to, but somewhere in your mind, there's like, no, that one's right and that one's wrong. Well, compared to what? You know, and I think sometimes it feels like, well, compared to some sort of absolute aesthetic for what we like and what we don't. But my experience is it's not that. Mine is the one that's right is the one that it was. So it's a recreation. And so it's all transcription. It's all, I just heard something and I got to work it out before I lose it. Only where I heard it was in my brain. This extra bar, that's written for me. So very simple. It's really, the piece is actually very, very simple. It's just that what it explores is what I actually really enjoy the most, which is like trying to skate right on the edge of people staying with it. How far can I push this and have people be with it? I do that now because doing that without challenging the chords and and pushing the harmonies, I can kind of do, you know, fairly consistently. So anyway, any other questions? I see our numbers are down quite a bit today. I hope that's all because people are back to people back to work yet? Is that all? Are we done with that stuff yet? Anyway, if there are no other pressing questions, but somebody had asked, you know, just to explain what was going on with that thing, and I thought, well, that's worth explaining. Oh, these pieces are great to transcribe. Well, that's part of why I put the piano thing up, because that is ultimately that's your score. After the live stream, it's great to slow them down and take a look under the hood. Yeah, man, people are dead. Well, what are we at? What's the death count? Anybody know? What's the COVID death count? Where are we at? Let's see. I just want to look this up. How are we doing? COVID death count today, because that's going to be whatever that number is all. They're doing a lot of that stuff. I've 3 people in my life have died in the last week. None of them from COVID. It's really weird. What are we at? Deaths 87,984. Let's get out that calculator today. See if whether or not this is a thing yet. We should even begin to pay attention to this yet. Let me just take a look. It's a good time to do this. Don't I have a calculator? I'm sure I have a calculator here. I can't do this math in my head. I wish I could, but I'm not Rain Man. I think only Rain Man could do this in his head. Let's break this out. Calculator. All right, so let's take 87,984 people worldwide. And let's divide that by the world population of 8 billion. How many zeros is that? 1, 2, 3. How many? Let's see. Is that right? Let's see. That's 1,000, million, billion. That doesn't seem right. Calculator on the Mac sucks. We need a scientific one that's got more zeros in it. You know, with a thing like this. What do we got? 87? Let's just round that up. Because there might be people who might have kicked off where we're doing this. 88,000 divided by 8 billion. Let's see. 0.00001. That's statistically 0 people have died. 0.00001 of us have died from that. By the same token, chances of being hit by lightning, 1 divided by 3,000, 0.0003. So still way, way more likely to get struck by lightning than to die by COVID. So, yeah. So get those fucking lightning rods ready. That's all I have to say about that. If you are not protecting yourself from fucking lightning streams, you are not ready. Shit. Anyway, so that's where we are. 432 many. I don't know. You know what I find interesting about this, just while we're talking about this, is how quickly a government made it very clear who was essential and who's not essential. That's one thing I'm wondering, if you're one of the millions of people, countless millions, maybe billions of people, that the government just said, okay, so really, we don't need you. You can stay home. It won't make a difference. That's just an interesting thing to know if you're on the other side of it. Like, garbage men, essential. You know, the trucks driving all the stuff, essential. Food, essential. Those hard hat people keeping the internet going, yeah. But the rest of it, no, you could stay home for a month. We're fine. It's just like there's a whole bunch of people facing that. The Chinese slaves making everything, essential. All the pilots and the truck drivers bringing all the shit to you, essential. Most people, yeah, it's not me saying that. I just wonder if people have looked at that. Yeah, we don't really need you. You could stay home forever, kind of. It's a weird thing for people to... well, no, it's not wrong, because that's the death toll worldwide. The death toll worldwide is 88,000. Worldwide. All people. Now, the death percentage is completely fucked up, because 80% of the people who get it don't report it because their symptoms are so mild they're not talking to a doctor or anything. So right now, this is why these numbers don't make any sense. Because when we're talking about here's the number of people who have it, and then here's the number of people who've died, and then we try to calculate the mortality rate. But most of the people who get it don't report it. So this number is completely, so the thing's all fucked up. Most of us, I think, have it. I think I had it. I think my boys had it. In fact, herd immunity, I think, is the way we're going to get over it. But since January, it's like, because in Los Angeles, in California, like hardly anybody's died. But we also have Chinese people, like 7,000 Chinese people a day showing up in LAX. I think we've all gotten it and gotten over it already, but whatever. Anyway, I'm still worried about lightning. So, yeah, and it depends where you are too. Yeah, philosophically, I mean, that's how you can tell culturally. Like, New Yorkers are different than people in the South in Texas. Would anybody argue that? And the people in New York, infinitely more self-absorbed and self-important, and and much more worried about themselves and their important contributions to the earth. And people in Texas, put some duct tape on that, get in there a couple more innings, boy, you'll be all right. You know what I mean? It's just they're just different. I mean, you're gonna have to. You get a good old boy to the hospital, he's gonna be coming and carrying his arm. You get a lot of people in New York, it's like L.A. Just my shoulders. I just really need. You know what I mean? Like all that. Anyway, so. But but in other places, like my buddy's place in Florida, we have a shop together in Florida. That you would not know anything's going on. We were having our big machines delivered yesterday. The construction's going on. You would not know. There's whole sections you would not know. Everybody's fuck you. I'm not putting on a mask. And how you doing? I'm okay. I've had this cough for 2 weeks. That's it. And they just keep going. And there's other places, people just rocking back and forth, just in a puddle of their own piss. Oh my God! It just depends where you are. You know what I mean? But but I've said this before. Musicians, we are essential. Can you imagine? Can anybody imagine a world without music? No. You can imagine a world maybe without lawyers. No offense, but music, no. Most cultures invented music before written language. Music is that which unites all and divides none. It is one thing that every human being has in common. Every living thing responds to music. If there wasn't music, we'd make it again. It's absolutely crucial. It's why we're very, very privileged and have a responsibility as musicians to be good at what we do and put good stuff into the world, because there's not a whole lot of every time, not every profession can say that every time that they go to work, they put a good thing into the world. Like the worst thing that happens, bad music, nobody ever gets hurt. It doesn't hurt anybody, but it can always help somebody. It's nice to be a musician. And you know what else is cool? I was thinking about this, about being musicians, is if the whole world ended and you took all the modern conveniences away, like if you put us in a time machine and you all sent us back 2,000 years ago, we'd all have the exact same job. We have a job no matter where you dropped us off in history. Just like suddenly, it's the year 500, I'd be a composer. I wouldn't even need to learn new instruments. The same fucking instruments. You know what I mean? Yeah. Take out no music in the world for a week. Let's see the death count then. Oh God, they'd be leaping off. They'd just be singing. They'd be, you know what I mean? That would not happen. It wouldn't happen. Italy, death test around 12%. We don't know. That number will change anyway, because it's not 12%, right? It's going to be 12% amongst the reported cases, and no shortage of people don't even know they have it. So far, just a little anecdotal, informal. Everybody I know has had it, or had a weird or some kind of different, fucked up, weird flu since January. Everybody I know. So I think we've all got it already. And I think they're just going to wait until they finish decimating the last class of people who have any resistance to government control, and then suddenly there'll be a cure for it. But whatever. But honestly, I think herd immunity is going to be our actual out of it. It's like, we just all got it and got over it. People make money from music. It's reportedly, I don't know. Hey, Mike, how about a COVID-19 Unleashed episode? Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, Unleashed, yeah. I mean, I could do that, but I give people time to put a piece together, you know what I mean? And I know people take their time with it. And plus, if from the last Unleashed, we talked a lot about, like, the next Unleashed may be like, bring your piano pieces, bring your 200 piano pieces, because that's where the real music is. And that's part of why all of these have been just little piano pieces, because you can hear how these things could be orchestral stuff or bigger stuff. That first thing I ever did, some little like Bee Gees, Beatles kind of thing, you can almost hear the fucking drums in it, but you don't need it to get the idea across. So that's been an important thing. Grabbed the mod class the other day. That and the Unleashed streams have been extremely helpful. Makes you work harder at piano and expanding the language. That's the point, man. That's the whole reason we do this. That's the whole reason. Like, let's all just level up and get more power and more control over art. That's the best feeling, man. When you can, when you have control over what you're doing, because if it's going to be your life, especially, then that means you have some control over your destiny. And it never feels like that as a creative, you're at the mercy of so many things. And so the more that you can actually change that and flip that script and just say, actually, you know what? I can say what I want to. I can say interesting things. I know I can connect with people. I know I can find my audience, and I know I can find the people who value it and will pay me to do it. All that's real comforting. It's if not now, when? Seriously, like when? A surviving government lockdown masterclass. It's like, what? What do I think of what is that, Johan Johansson? I don't know his work. I've seen his name, but I can't speak competently about his work, I'm afraid. Message retracted. Don't retract your messages. Do you not know me? You don't retract your messages. You own that shit. We do that around here. That's why you come to Red Band. That's what the Red Band is for. I don't know if any of you guys know that, but my early master classes, I don't even know if I do this anymore, but I used to put the Red Band, like the warning from a restricted trailer, like if you want to see a movie and it was restricted, or they had a red band across it to let you know, get the kiddies out of the room. And since there was obviously going to be all kinds of that stuff going on in my master classes, they're adult audience master classes, I put the Red Band up. But also, I'm one of those people I'm going to tell you what I think, and I don't really... I'm not going to be silenced or shadow banned. So I'm exactly the kind of guy to get buried in an algorithm, and shadow banned. I'm exactly that guy. Because I'll say things that are not allowed. And I just get, if you've ever seen one of my social media streams, it's just like that thing. It's just like shout down, and I'll never, ever be shouted down. That doesn't never happen. But that also means that you get pushed around places. So I'm for bring it out. Especially because that's where the most interesting stuff is. We don't talk about that. Like, that to me is like, oh, yes, we do. Obviously, that's all we should be talking about, because you just admitted that thing has all the power in it. That's our fuel as artists, right there. You just said it. Well, I don't want to talk about politics. Oh, yeah, yes, we do. Get it in. Let's get, what the fuck? What do you think we're doing around here? That's our fucking passion. That's where it gets. Let's get some fire in there. Let's make something happen as artists. I mean, that's kind of our job, is to get into all the dirty in there and air all that shit out. You know what I mean? And explore all those places for other people whose asses would get fired. You know what I mean? But we're not going to get fired, so we should go there. So, you know what I mean? So whatever your opinion was, you're safe with me. As long as you can defend it. I'm not a reactionary. I don't get offended. I don't even know I don't really even understand that concept. But yeah, I try to make it this is the safest space. My channels, my forums, if you're with me, that's the safest space in your whole world for you to say exactly what the fuck you're thinking. The thing you're afraid that if people knew what you really thought, they wouldn't like you anymore. Yeah, you break that out. You just get all that shit out. We'll see. I'll let you know. You don't have to retract anything. Often, when I come up with an easy musical idea, I often have the problem. I don't really know how to go on after 4 to 5. Yeah. So again, especially you, brother, you know this. What you're saying is, remember, it's a language. It's exactly a language. It's not like a language. It is a language. And the way you improve your communication and your sentence structure is by reading more complex sentences and learning more vocabulary words. If your vocabulary is limited, the ideas that you can express is thusly limited. So those vocabulary words are analogous in music to new chord progressions. So stretch out and transcribe and listen to kinds of music that maybe you don't normally go to, even if you don't necessarily like them, because though you may not like them, they may contain things that are useful to you. You know what I'm saying?
I don't have a dislike yet.
Yes, I do.
No, I don't.
Oh, they're waiting for you. Well, see, it's because me. I told you. You weren't here, so I didn't get any dislikes. It's you they don't like.
Why?
Because you're a snotty little brat.
Did you think that for 9 years?
Yeah.
Well, if you thought so, then why
Oh, I can't believe you didn't just turn. Why didn't you just turn that on to? Well, then it must be your bad parenting. I left you wide open for that, right?
No, I was gonna say then why did you take care of me when I was 2?
Okay. Because you weren't a brat yet.
It's not good to me.
No, it's not.
There's evidence right there in the text.
What's
There's evidence right there.
What? Okay. All right. Well, it's good.
Yeah,
Good
I told
point.
you. It's because of all the corona stuff. That's why they dislike me.
Why? Because of like all my contrarian views.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Just like when you know what you were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
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 You just watched it as like 30, 40, 50, 70.
That's true. That's true. I could rack up those dislikes pretty easy. You understand me. So listen to transcribe stuff out of your wheelhouse and out of maybe even what you like, just because I guarantee those things will find a place. Will find a home. What is this? What is? Mike, do you think there's still room for longer multi-part piano pieces like sonatas in terms of new material? Or are these forms firmly in the past? I mean, they're relevant if people are listening to them. So is there a place for them? You know, there's people who would love that, man. Maybe, and if that's what you love doing, then that's your audience. You know, those are your people. And you know, you should write more of those pieces if that's what you like. But also, just the exercise of doing it is not bad for you. So it doesn't really, don't look to the outside world to tell you what to write or to put a valuation on your expression. If you want to write a bunch, first of all, the exercise of going through that would never, ever, ever be a problem. It would only be good for you. So it doesn't really matter if it's like a thing that people are doing. The question is, do you like doing it? And do you think there's other people who would appreciate it? 8 billion people on the planet? I guarantee there's more people who would like that than you could possibly hope to recruit in your lifetime. So don't worry about that. Do what you want to do. And even if it goes nowhere, the act of doing it will serve you well. Is there a way I can apply to be your assistant? Man, nobody would want to be my assistant. They just think they would want to be my assistant. So to do the sword swallowing, you got to turn sideways because everybody can see. You got to turn sideways. No, don't look at yourself because you're ruining it. Yeah, now, try it that way. There you go. That's it. There you go. That's pretty good. There you go. So you have to avoid looking. You have to look at it later. It's tempting because I know you want to see yourself, but you have to just remember it's for the show. Like always, the show must go on. Then you can review it later. What about a masterclass about how to get away from the 4 chords repeating over and over? You know what? Honestly, well, of course I've done that in a lot of ways, but that's what the modulation classes are about. But don't be looking to get away from the 4 chords until you're sure that you could do those 4 chords and you could maximize the most of them and you could make a whole career on 4 chords. People have. You know?
The thing is, there's one answer that can answer every question. Ask me a question.
What about how do I get away from 4 chords?
Shove it.
Yeah, it's just not a very nice answer. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. Push through that. You know, can you write like a ton of little ditties or you know, nursery rhymes or pop tunes using those 4 chords? Because if that's the case, then yeah, I can understand. But then you'll naturally be spreading out and going to other things anyway. But I would say that make your input about as wide a range of stuff as possible. Get your brain churning on new concepts and new ideas. But work the simple ones in front of you. Work those. Hello from Argentina. So yeah, I sort of blew off the assistant question. I've never, you know, I do an awful lot of stuff other than music. Music is a part of what I do, but not even, I mean, it's probably 50% at best now. So an assistant would there's no way to regularly do that. But also, I have really, really, really tried to put the real shit in the master classes. Like, I don't hold stuff back. There's no secrets. A lot of people hold on when they have a secret. They hold on to it because they think they're going to give them the edge over other people. Ha ha ha. I don't work that way. I work the other way. If I come up with a new thing, I want everybody to have it because I'd rather beat them on a level playing field than have an unfair advantage, because then I won't take any pride from it if I have an unfair advantage. I have a thing that's a trick, and first of all, it'll run out because it'll figure out the trick. But it's like beating up a 2-year-old. I can't take any pride in beating up a 2-year-old just because I have more strength. So I if I have a trick, I give it away immediately. It's all open source. Here, let's go. Because that's how we all get better anyway. So the classes, all my classes, honestly, they both have all the real shit in them. And number two, if you've seen them, there's no there's nothing held back in those classes. They're not censored in any way. Not my opinions, not my approach. So I don't really know what you get for being around me except annoyed. Because I'm like super. You know what I mean? Like, you only have to deal with me in little chunks, but my girl's a very special human being. She can listen to all my fucking ranty shit 24 hours a day, always trying to work out this little utopia in my brain. And another thing, the fucking, she roll with that. She's like one of maybe 2 people on the planet that can handle. So you wouldn't probably actually want that. A question about 4 chords. How would balance between simple progressions, such as a Zimmer's time, versus continuing progression and modulation, how would you balance? Well, of course, you can't balance unless you have equal measure of both things. And that's true across all the disciplines. It's just like production versus actual composing chops. You've got to have production chops in 2020, otherwise what are you going to do with it? But if you have only production chops, but then you can't actually write, well, then you're out of balance again. So in order to figure out, well, how do I balance really complex chord progression and modulation with really simple stuff? Well, obviously, that means you have to have mastered that other part so you can make the choice. And that's not just an evasive answer. It's actually the truthful answer, because if you actually have done that, then the answer will present itself. Because part and parcel of learning all of the extra complex stuff is the degree to which it alienates the everyman, the average person who's probably listening to your music. And so you're always thinking about, just like I did with that piece today, okay, I don't want to lose them. I don't want to lose the room. It's my job to communicate. It is my job to make a connection. It is not my job to just stand up there and alienate everybody because I didn't have the skill to read the room and control the room. And that is a basic communication skill. And since music is communication, that's a basic music skill. So when you're learning more complex stuff, you are also learning the liability of learning that complex stuff, the liability in alienating the average person. And where your control will be tested is the degree to which you can keep people on the rails, keep the whole thing on the rails, keep them with you, while not getting trapped in just this tiny little bubble. But if you actually have a really wide set of a really wide vocabulary, and you can do a lot of things, that actually answers itself. So stay focused on building that vocabulary, on increasing your power, on listening to all kinds of music, and transcribing all of it. Get it under your fingers. Start to recognize patterns. You don't even have to consciously do it. Your brain will do it. It'll be desperate to do it. It'll build an understanding of things, and then you'll find relationships that make sense to you and you alone in ways that only your brain will understand. But that's the point at which you'll have control over it. My Desert Island film score would have to be the original Star Wars. None of the other scores, there's a thing about it that none of the other scores, even in that trilogy, quite hit. He's never done a score quite like it. It's also the most reference heavy, but that's the one. And it has to be for a lot of reasons. That's why I became a film composer. My whole life started on the day I heard that music, so that would have to be that. Do I think the COVID pandemic will have any lasting effects on the entertainment business? Yeah, well, it's going to have a lot of effect on a lot of businesses. But I mean, the place that I wish it was going to have the effect on, it will not have on, which is it will not have the effect of having like super amazing, great symphonic works, or are there huge artistic expressions come out, born out of all of the deep emotion of it? Because most people don't possess the skill to do that. That's just a thing. Most people are not as highly skilled as our predecessors were. Most composers were not even in the same fucking league as a Stravinsky or a Shostakovich. Not even close. So if they're facing a tragedy or a crisis or a moment, they have so much craft with which to externalize those feelings and try to encapsulate them for a populace struggling with the experience. But we don't really have the ability to do it. We're trying. We're all studying really hard. Certainly, if you're watching my channel or you're on my forum, you're doing your damnedest to try to. Could you even be in the same sentence as one of the greats? Well, they were mortals. If we studied hard enough, we could. Are we? Because they weren't actually gods. They were men and women, or probably, but mostly men. But anyway, the point is that I just, I think there's going to be a lot of depression. I know a lot of people, whose lives have been completely destroyed. They had to give up on the business. Their businesses have collapsed. The people hardest hit by this it's not bodies piling up. It's businesses piling up. It's people who, don't want government control, and they don't want government intervention, and they don't want handouts. They want to make something for themselves, and they want to look at it and go, "That I did that." Those are the people who are getting their asses handed to them on a plate right now. And those are the people, and if you know them, that on the Facebook, it's just crying all day on the Facebook. So those people certainly affected. But entertainment industry, production is still going on in a lot of places. So I don't know. There'll probably be stories about it, but I don't think certainly I don't think we're going to see a renaissance. But what if it's 102-year-olds, right, to beat up? I really love the Terminator Genesis work camp and how it implements the theme at a very late phase of that song by Modulating. Do you think that repetition is important for film scores and album? I think you should take Composition 1 to know my thoughts on repetition and pattern establishment. What issues do you struggle with musically as someone who has a wider musical vocabulary? Me? Well, like I said, for me, the final frontier is constantly seeing how much plasticity there is in perception. How cleverly can I take people, into places that are fundamentally uncomfortable? Because if it's going to be about tension and release and dissonance and consonance, then for me, can I make it fiercely, how dissonant and what is the smoothest consonance to it? Because there's almost no end to that exploration, and that's what I'm doing. And then that also ripples into orchestration. What's truly the least that I can do and most cleverly be capitalizing on psychoacoustic phenomenon and acoustic phenomenon, and also stretching the limits of a player's ability, getting the most out of the human being that ultimately has to make that stuff real with an instrument. Those things are just huge, vast, enormous, frontiers. And that's what I work on. That's my struggle. That's what I'm, just because after decades and decades and decades, my original struggles, like the one where I thought everything had to be original, every chord had to be a new chord, I got over that one. And the one in which I would constantly overwrite and over-orchestrate, I got over that one. And, and the one in which I didn't know how to balance what I wanted to do artistically and what a client wanted, I figured out that one. It was a lot of work and a lot of projects and a lot of years. But for me, the struggle is an internal one now. It's between me and me and me. Ultimately in the service of music for an audience, but still. Do I like jazz? That's how I started. Well, I was trained classically for 6 years. Good old-fashioned rod on the... is my thing frozen? Rod on the knuckles kind of thing. And so, because I was always changing the music. And so when I was 11, somebody recommended I take jazz. And jazz improvisation is composing. It was extemporaneous composing, and my very first compositions were all big band stuff and jazz combo stuff. So I know why I get angry watching you. It's because I'm 53 and not 20. but you know, that's bullshit too. Because at 50, you also, you know, you're way better at calling bullshit on stuff and not wasting time in certain places, and you're not just going to go just anywhere because you're going to be more discerning and more efficient in your learning. I wouldn't worry about that. Another message retracted. Stop retracting your messages. There are plenty of great modern composers. I don't, you know, I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of great, right? Because I'm going to totally disagree with that statement, because I figured for me, great is only defined by intentionally in control of your craft. So if you like modern music, that's subjective. Nobody can tell you what great music is or isn't. Whatever you think is or isn't great is what's great. It's true for everybody. Nobody can tell you what to like, nor should they. But what can be objectively, quantifiably measured is control. And most modern composers can't write a pop tune because they're not actually in control of the craft of music and composing and connecting with an audience. And they've chosen modern music, unlike somebody like Schoenberg, who was an amazing tonal composer. They've chosen modern music because they can't actually hack it. They don't actually have any skills. And so they go into a place in which they can set their own bounding volume and they can set their own standard and then thus avoid any sort of comparisons. So that's my, overwhelmingly, that's my experience with no shortage of modern music. So that's why I would disagree with you on it, and not whether the music itself is great. I don't like that shit, but that's not up to me. If you think the music is great, you're right. The music is great. It's great modern music. But I can't say that unless it could be demonstrated that every one of those composers were masters of the tonal craft, could sit down and bang out a ballad or a child's tune, then they're not actually in control of it. It's like somebody saying, I can't paint stick figures, I can only paint Picassos. Fuck you, bullshit. A lot of younger people would argue that the prequels had better scores. I mean, but that's... Again, if they were arguing that, then they're already not aware of the structural difference between the two types of scores. The structural differences, which were a natural byproduct of the way that the films were made. So since they're not even considering it, then I'm not sure what standard of comparison they're making. But the prequels, by design, could not be as well structured as the original films, not even if John Williams wanted them to be. They're inferior, structurally vastly inferior. So if you're not considering any of that, then I'm not sure what you're talking about, what, the melodies or something? I don't know. But that would be a flimsy argument. But again, if they're not aware of the other quality of it, then it's not really even an argument in the first place.
Well, guess what we got?
There we go. There's our unlike. See, that's you. I told you. You showed up. Dude, you're screwing with my likes.
Well, look, there are 2 more.
How am I ever going to grow my channel with you on it? Dude, God, dude. Have I ever written songs with lyrics? Probably. I mean, I'm not a lyricist. I don't take any of those things like as though they're like a good lyricist is like a good composer. Like, it's a real thing. So, I would really like to collaborate with a lyricist more than, but I've probably written something, not offhand. Mike, how often in the film business you need to provide full notation of your scores? Well, I mean, it depends on the kind of stuff you do. I mean,
Why do I have 3 dislikes?
Unless it's because we just,
What have I done wrong?
I told you, dude. Told you. Sit, watch it. You walk off camera, those will go away. They'll take them back. We have occasion offline.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, watch. You left. Just watch. I'll tell you, it'll go down to 0. So yeah, I've never had to provide full notation unless it was going, actually any notation, unless it was going on the stands, you know. Often there is, even on those things, if I have the time, there is a notation. 2. It's already 2. 1. See, there it is. Told you.
It just sometimes happens. So
Yeah.
I think people are just,
Look, numbers don't lie. 3 again. Damn it.
The two people know. They know.
5. Oh, shit. Theory's out the window.
You guys.
7. Oh, see, damn it. All right. That's fine.
I think it's just because they're playing along with this. I think they're all about to dislike this.
That's like a thing too. Like,
Yeah,
if you've ever
I
seen,
know.
there have been like times where something comes out and it's almost like the whole world agrees that it's
Yeah.
time to hate. Like when the new Ghostbusters movie came out,
Yeah.
like the trailer, it was like a thing. Like, hey, everybody just go and dislike this thing. It was like this ridiculous, like 20 million dislikes. It was kind of a thing to do. People weren't even watching the trailer. Okay, I'm going to watch it. Speaking of Corona and entertainment industry, Michael Giacchino mentioned earlier on Instagram that all his movies were pushed back to next year. Yeah, well, okay. Okay. I mean, what are we going to do? Your freebies were among the first film score tutorials I saw back around 5 years ago that inspired me to study film scoring. How has your career as a virtual mentor evolved since then? We're at 2. It's going up and down. It's like them COVID numbers. It's going up and down. So as my career has evolved in that it's not. I mean, it's still not a career, just for what that's worth. I mean, I really don't do it very often, especially now. But what has evolved about it is that in the process of teaching, anytime you teach something, when you're a father and you figure out what you're going to teach your son, Draco's homeschooled. If I'm a teacher and I'm teaching music, it really makes you think about what you do think. What do you believe? Because you have to teach it now. And so the Masterclasses for me have only helped hone my, my understanding of my own process, because I have to package it for you guys and really think about it. And that makes me a better composer because there's more intention in it. There's things that I've been doing for a long time that even I hadn't thought about. And when I'm trying to explain to somebody, it forces me to actually go, well, what the hell is that I do? So that's so I think I've become a better teacher just by virtue of the fact that I'm teaching. That's got to be true. I mean, I hope so. But also, it's more so than me. It's also we have a little community. It's a very tiny little community. I think we're just about to hit 1,000 members on the Red Band forum. But it's really, really nice to see any kind of place where it's so singularly focused on legitimately getting better. Like, it doesn't get spun off into other discussions. You're really only there, and that's why the post count is actually fairly low, because people don't post unless there's something to say, something to do, unless they're really working on something. So that whole virtual aspect, that virtual extension of the teaching has changed and evolved, and it's really, really great to see because then I know everybody's working on that. They're getting better, and they're getting better, and I know that you guys are reaping the rewards of that to the exact degree that you're working on it, and that's great. So, that's real cool. The main subject of tonight, we were just looking at the piece I submitted earlier. Today's the number 7 went out earlier today, and I just wanted to start this with a discussion of what was behind that piece. So you can go back and check that out. Pissing in the soup just makes more soup. It does not make the soup better. That's what I think of the prequel scores. Okay. Unless you like piss soup. I'm giving people ideas. Noob question about transcribing. I get the point that it's incredibly helpful, but at the same time, it is conditioning. I can tell this we're about to spin off into something. I can feel something. It's conditioning your brain to an extent that while composing, we often run into those same patterns we've learned and picked up consciously and subconsciously. Yeah, but controlling it is different. Parroting is different.
No dislikes on all my channel. So why do
all right.
people
So
dislike
is that your empirical evidence? That's your argument? Is that your channel, which features only you, has no dislikes? Is that the argument you're making?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it isn't you, though.
It's a compelling argument. I don't immediately have a
They
retort
just hit
for
our
it.
house.
So anyway, so yeah, so again, we definitely in transcribing simple pieces are not only reinforcing things that we know, but that's the common vocabulary that we're using to speak to people with. And that's very important because it is the common language and the common patterns that allow this to happen in real time. We cannot actually speak in real time to each other without the receiving party jumping ahead just a little bit in the anticipation of what we're going to say. If we actually had to process each word at a time, wait, then speech would happen far too quickly. But as I talk about one of the composition classes, when I say once upon a, the fact that your brain already went time is a crucial component in that. And I'm capitalizing on something that you already know, and you know I'm capitalizing on something that you already know, and that's a very, very important part of real-time communication. But then the difference, the ways in which I deliberately frustrate that pattern or go somewhere else are the part that re-engages your brain. So we discuss all this stuff in Composition 1 and 2, especially these foundational concepts of recruiting the common vocabularies and syntaxes and grammars that people have, but as a basis to build on. Wouldn't it be hard to develop our own unique voice? No, not at all, because so I've always said this. Your voice is your voice because it is the product of your unique life experiences, your unique philosophies. You are the only one in the world who's had your exact life. We want to develop skills enough so that we can externalize all of those unique things. If we don't have a very wide vocabulary, then no matter how profound an experience we've had, we won't be able to tell anybody about it. We won't have the words to even describe it. And in that case, then we'll be forced to sound like somebody else or everybody else. In fact, only people with simple words. It is our limitation in the way that we express ourselves that will stop our unique voice from coming out. But if you have all of the words and you can draw from a multitude of styles and grammars and syntaxes, then really all that's left back on the table is not how you're going to say it, but what you're going to say. And that is going to be you. Unless you're not doing the other part of your job as a musician, which is living life and having philosophies and thinking and life experiences and being an interesting person. Boring people don't make interesting artists. They don't make interesting music. So the other half of our job is to go out there and push the boundaries and frontiers and live and experience life to the fullest. That's our muse. That's the wellspring from which we write. That's the essence of what we're ultimately going to speak about. And now we just have to make sure that we have the vocabulary and such to be able to say it. And then you can't help but be unique. You can't help it because you are unique, a snowflake. So, so there are some parallels with acting, but there are, most acting is taught completely wrong, and most actors waste all their time. Like they go to classes and they try to learn how to get real with their emotions. This happens in acting all the time. As a director, drives me nuts. I always have to get actors over this. But they go to acting classes all the time, and the idea in an acting class is that if you're really feeling the emotion, then it'll register as real as you externalize it. The exact opposite is true, because human beings don't show their emotions. They try to contextualize and hide their emotions. That's what they do. People don't just without a filter externalize their internal stuff. Some people do. Some people wear it on their sleeves. Most people. So when an actor is in the place, they often end up way overwrought, and they're not sending the signals of things that actually register as real. So the dovetail there with it is that in the end, the patterns of the way people actually act is more important in communicating a thing as real than it is that they experience something real. There's a parallel to this in CG as well. CG, nothing is real, but learning the ways in which, as visual effects artists, we can make you believe it's real. We can't actually do all the infinite variety, the billions of things that physics and light transport do in nature. A million properties of materials. We wouldn't have the computational power to render them all. That's if we could program them all. So it's not real. Our job is to figure out which are the things that your brain looks for when it looks at a material, or in the way light behaves, or in the way physics are acting, in order for your brain to recognize it as real. And that is pattern recognition too. There's parallels across every discipline I can think of that are like this. In the end, it's important to develop the skills. It's important to have the life experience, and it's important to know how the rest of the world views, sees, hears, and thinks in general, in order to be able to gauge where you are in your expression. First time catching you live. I've enjoyed watching your Unleashed videos for years. It's helped me good, especially in the idea of vertical development and reducing music to two-handed pianos. Yeah, that's a huge thing, man. It's everything. Like I said, if you take all the sounds out and your music doesn't make sense, then there really was nothing there, you know. Not that what wasn't there couldn't be cool. And like, who doesn't like a fucking good groove? Like, who doesn't like that? But again, yeah, but could you write a symphony? Because then you're not in control. If you can write a symphony, you can always go back and do the other shit. It's real easy. Probably won't, but still. Just control. That's all we're looking for. Control. Because I want you to have your best chance at having a life. You know what I mean? All right. Draco bombing my spam. I'm struggling to find jobs in the area. I just scored a TED Education video so far. Do you have any advice? Hello from Brazil. Well, yeah, don't look in the area. There isn't an area anymore. There's the world now. That's the one thing you got to do, is recruit the fact that we're all connected. See, people used to come to Hollywood because it was like 12 block radius. Everything happened in a 12 block radius. Then you had to know all the people in that 12 block radius in order to work and do everything happen. But it's happening everywhere now. As a director, I can't remember the last time I shot in L.A. They make it way too expensive, way too much of a pain in the ass. It's like they tried to force us out. So nobody shoots there anymore. We shoot all kinds of other places. Some things do, but mostly we shoot everywhere. We shoot in New Mexico. We shoot in Canada. We shoot in all the Slavic countries. We shoot all kinds of places. We get better tax breaks. We get incentives. The crews are great everywhere now. So you just go wherever it is. As a composer, my clients are not mostly, I don't think I've had an LA client in 10 years at least. All my clients are in Europe and in Japan. They're all over the place. Because why they would not, just, if I need to get on a plane, I can go there. But no, it's all virtual. We send it in. Yeah, I like it. There you go. That's it. So, unless you've boxed yourself into an industry, which some people do, they just go, well, I want to work in this industry. All right, well, then I guess you're going to work in that industry. But don't complain about the money you get because you've owned your allegiance to an industry, not to working with good people on good projects. Those are two different lives. So finding work. I mean, there's a kind of work that you can get face to face, right, with people, whatever. But don't underestimate that your brand equity isn't transportable, because it is. Like I'll tell you, even like in a super phony place like L.A., where you got to know everybody and blah 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 and all this stuff. You know what they love more than anything? Somebody from Europe. Like that guy comes in with. Like, everybody around town and they all know you, and I worked with them on this and I worked with them on this, and then here comes some guy nobody's ever heard of, but he's from some like foreign sounding country. Everybody's he's from Iceland, and everybody wants to have him on his film just because he's different. It's just all phony bullshit anyway. But the lesson to take away from that is, being a foreigner is probably a asset more than ever a liability now. So make sure your stuff is online. Make sure it is demonstrative of of the kind of work that you want to do. Don't put shit on your demo reel you don't want to get hired to do, because God is my witness, that's what you'll end up doing. The shit you didn't want to do, and work on your craft, so that when we all worry about getting the phone to ring. That's what everybody worries about. Everybody worries about, I got to get the job. I got to get the job. I got to get the job. I get the job. Then one day the fucking phone rings. Okay. All right there, sport. Now what are you going to do? Now you got to do the job. So you better be ready. So be good, so that no matter what opportunity comes your way, you can rock that shit. And the downtime is when you learn those new skills, when you take my classes and do all that other stuff. But also don't forget to live, man. Don't forget to put your stuff in your art. Put you in your art, otherwise it's generic shit. If you're a guy who's real sounds like this, you're fucked. You're fucked beyond fucked. Because there's 900 gabillion of you. So it's just going to be a fucking coin toss if you get a gig. You know what I mean? That's why you got to learn other skills. You can always do that. Trust me. If you wake up at 3 in the morning and shit that stuff out, if you have even this much skill, so that's not a problem. That's waiting for you. Put that on the reel in case you want to make some money. But learn skills so that no matter what it is, hey, we're looking for a guy who can do fucking jazz chart. It's really random. We can't find anybody. I'll take that cash right here. Thank you. And who cares where it is? A forum is Redband, redbanned.com. I'm an orchestra teacher. I'm sorry if I'm behind. Teaching online now with no instruments. So I'm going to be teaching composition. Will you share what software you use to stream with the light up piano? Yeah, this is it's called virtual. Somebody they figured out who it was by. It's called virtual piano or something, virtual keyboard. It's like 4DRX is like or something. Let's see if it's got the name. I've had it on here forever. Yeah, it's called virtual keyboard. Let's see if I can tell you who it's from. Somebody help him. Somebody found this. It's the one. It's like 4DRX.com. There it is. 4DRX.com. That's who makes the one I use. And it's in this case, I have a disc clavier. I have a C7 disc clavier, so it's MIDI'd up. So it's just MIDI'd into an interface and picking it up. But if you have a keyboard, it'll do that. Somebody look at that, sending a little tip. Dude, super cool, totally unnecessary. You know what? Thank you for that. But you could take that and you could go buy a class and get way more out of it than, you know what I mean? So if you want to, that wouldn't mean it. I'd be totally fine. I want to take that back and go spend it on a class, get a couple classes maybe, because this would just be a minute, Also, somebody said, but would you mind taking a few minutes for evaluating my personal composition? Man, I'm going to set up a precedent if I say that. Hold on, let me think about it. Mike, flashback to 2003. Oh, Draco, I love you too, buddy. Oh, wait, I missed a comment here. Mike, I've heard other composers mention that major seventh chords in modern film scores are considered cheesy, but I can't understand why. Because when you don't actually know how to control them, when you don't have anything other than this sound in your mind, Okay, if that's in your mind, they're fucking cheesy. Yeah, so all they're admitting to at that point is that they suck. That's all that's major sevenths are chords cheesy. So in other words, you don't know how to control them. You have no skill, no craft. Go fuck yourself. They're not. Is that cheesy? I don't think so. First of all, people are using them all the time. But there's nothing inherently cheesy about them. Alan Silvestri is still using the shit out of that, so fuck them. That's part of one reason I want to do the woodwinds class, because woodwinds got thrown completely out. Woodwinds are a fucking monstrous section. You can do all kinds of stuff with them. If you don't know how to write for woodwinds, then yeah, I guess everything's going to sound dated. But that's you. That's not the woodwinds. What do you think? They had woodwinds for the last 200 years and then suddenly that doesn't work anymore? What? That's you. What? Not you, but you know what I mean. But yeah, man. Hey, Mike, if you're open to listening to pieces, I have a string quartet played by some Richmond symphony musicians. I'd like to get you in communication. All right, okay. All right, I'm not going to start this. We'll do one. We'll do a little unleash. You can get your pieces. I'll put an announcement up. We'll do it in the next week or so, and we'll do that. And we'll just do a thing because I can tell this is right away. Everybody's going to want to put pieces up. So we'll do a little unleashed. Okay? It won't be a 21-hour thing. I don't have it, but we'll do a thing. Because why not? What reverbs do I like? I like ones that I don't notice. I can't actually tell you a plugin but I like, I like the ones that are they get out of the fucking way. transparent reverbs. If I notice it, especially if I hear any of the processing in it, obviously. But isn't that how everybody feels? Isn't that how you judge a reverb, basically? You know, some vintage gear has a vintage sound, but yeah, I mean, reverb is an artificial thing. You know, I mean, if you've ever been in a stairwell, it's like, ah, there you go, that's a real reverb. That sounds stairwells, natural, no coloring. But that's the other thing too, and I've I've been guilty of it myself. You know, especially when you're doing virtual stuff, you have a chance to over wet and everything to try to hide all the fucking, lighten the curse of all the virtual stuff. But I learned myself that, when I do all my orchestral programming now, it's dry as a bone. I don't put on because if it works dry, then it works. But yeah, I will put an announcement about when I'm going to do that. Wouldn't you say there's a very fine line between very clever but still enjoyable and so clever it's not really enjoyable? Yeah. Yeah, of course, sure. Yes, of course, but that also depends on, that comes back to your audience, You have to know your audience, and not everybody is your audience, and not every meal is for every palate, and not every composer is for every listener. And, and so you have to sort of gauge whether or not, if you're doing a little thing, if your audience is going to go, I got you, or whether you have to put it on the nose and break the fourth wall to get them to get it, So yeah, of course, that danger is present in any time that that you're looking for attention. I always like second read, third read stuff. I always like the idea that it's when you go back and you've revisited a piece of material, looked at it, you realize there's a whole thing in there you hadn't seen before. And if that's where the clever is, that to me is that's the one that's not so desperately seeking the attention. It's like Dennis Miller. I don't know if you remember Dennis Miller, and Dennis Miller, there's not that many people are literally right there at the end of every Dennis Miller joke. He pulls references in such a way that you can warm up and condition for it and stay on top of it, but it's very deliberately, when you can feel the revisions on the drafts and some of his stuff that's designed to have you have to go, I didn't know what that is, but I'm going to appreciate it when I look it up. Yeah, but I don't know if Dennis still does what he does, but that's what he was famous for, is that the references were like it was like that was going to be your homework for the night, was looking up all the references and then going back and checking out what he had to say. But the truth is that, when he crafts a very deliberately wide palette of references. Some of that is to demonstrate, some is to give the illusion that all those things are just always at the tip of his brain, but it really isn't. The first versions were probably a lot more, pedestrian and simpler. But then it's like, well, let's go another level. We're going to say philosopher. We're going to go past Descartes, and we'll go into Immanuel Kant, and we'll go further. Like, he'll go for the one that's not the first one on your and then you have that. It's a little intimidating because then you're like, I'm not as smart as he is, but I wish I was. So there's like, that's a deliberate kind of thing. But walking that line, people like to feel smart. They don't like to feel stupid. They don't like to not know what you're doing. So, and that's the truth in music. That's why super modern stuff is so alienating for people, because you can't understand it, because it's deliberately designed to avoid your ability to criticize it. So, well, I'm making my own thing. It's on a different strata. You simply have no choice now. It's what I say it is. Yeah, right. What's the current discount code? Give them the current discount code. I could be wrong, but it feels like the growth of the VI control community, what a dumpster fire. that place is, as well as the commercial VSTs, has relatively shrunk over the years. You notice the same more composers. I mean, well, there's not at VI community control. There's no like real like. It's not like turning out a bunch of Shostakoviches, in case you hadn't noticed. I mean, I don't go there anymore. I checked in on it for the first time in like a year the other day, and it just turned into some enormous, horrible, horrifying thing. But I mean, in general, like I said, part of the reason I started Red Band in the forum is to give us a forum to try to create a little to try to create a little pocket of what our predecessors had an advantage of. Because if we were coming up 50, 70, 80 years ago and we were going to be composers, we would have internships with people who were fucking masters, and we'd be writing all day, and we'd have all kinds of opportunities to arrange and orchestrate and put things on stands and be with orchestras and play. We'd have to play. If you couldn't do all this shit, you wouldn't even have a job. So your skill would be higher, but then you're around. That world is gone. So I've tried to create a little pocket of that and try to create that in my master classes. Like in this world, it's the same world it was for the bulk of the last 200 years. The world didn't leave all that behind. We're still trying to learn basic, tried and true orchestration and symphonic stuff and how to control the families. We're still trying to have all of that control. And try to elevate each other and build each other up, and then have a little place where we put up our stuff, and then we can compete with each other, all trying to get better. So in those places, it's not stagnant, it's growing. But that's not how most things are. Because for most people, music and composing, especially for films, isn't about the music. It's a means to an end. It's the means by which they think they're going to get rich and famous or something. And everybody's going to, because if it's really about the music, then they'd be working on the music all day. You know what I mean? So it's just the music is just a means to an end. So in that case, it's going to stagnate because it's not about the music anyway, and it doesn't have to be better music. You can write for any film right now. Literally, there's composers who are making a lot of money right now, big money, who cannot read music, can't write music, cannot play an instrument, have never played an orchestra. They can't copy, they can't orchestrate, they can't arrange, they cannot conduct. I'm not really sure how they're still considered composers, but there's dudes like that. And there's people my age, and no shortage of them, who are doing the heavy lifting to help those guys get through the gig. We're the ghostwriters, we do the arranging, we're the ones who actually do the copying and the music prep and the orchestration, usually the ones directing it. I have a good friend who's done this for no shortage of named composers, who if you actually said, here's a pen and a paper and a piano, write this cue, it could not if you gave them a billion years. And, and so I want to kind of like, da-da-da-da-da, you know what I'm talking about, da-da-da, and then we all fill it out. And when we age out, they're going to be fucked. But because those kinds of people can have a gig right now, which is good, take the money. Why wouldn't you? That's not going to grow anywhere because it's not really about the music. But if you want to grow, if you want to learn it, are you kidding? Your music doesn't have to stagnate. Your music can go up and up and up and up. We still got a bar way to fuck up here to hit. We still got it. We're not anywhere near Stravinsky. We got plenty to work on. Plenty of growing stuff to do. Don't worry about that. An interesting topic would be to write a 4-bar melody and discuss how you develop it harmonically. Oh my God, guys, tell me I didn't do that. I must have done that like in one whole. That's got to be a class. I must have done that. I must have done that a bunch of times. I know I've done that. That's been like I've done that a shit ton. Help them out there. Yeah, what do melodies sound like? Heroic, sad, melancholy, down home, scary. There's no way I haven't done that. I'm wondering about your current workflow. Do you write on paper? Yes, because I'm way faster. It's paper, piano, paper. We did this on one of these live streams the other day. I mean, it was like putting on this thing, and pretty much you could have gone to the stands in an hour. Or do I do all my writing from the computer? Not at all. Piano, because it's faster. So, again, I know you haven't heard this discussion. I mean, I grew up when computers were coming up. I was at the same age as computers, so I had the very first computers of everything. First drum machines, first synthesizers, I had the first sequencers, I had Finale 1.0, all that shit. I had all that stuff. I watched them come up together, so I have no bias against them. But in the end, I'm a practical bottom line kind of guy. And I know that I can sit down on the piano, get a thing, put it on a piece of paper, sketch it, and get it on a stand at orders of magnitude faster than the fastest dude or myself on a workstation. So, yeah, that's not even a question. That would be a fucking shutout nightmare humiliation of a competition. It takes more time to fucking set up the fucking tracks, route the MIDI. I'm already done with the cue. And that's how music's been written for the last couple of hundred years. So it's not out of sense of like, well, you should just do it like the way it was done. No, none of that. No. It's faster. Wait, it's not even. It's like that doesn't even exist. That's how slow it is. So from a competitive edge, you got 12 hours to get it done. I got that. I got it. 12 hours. Holy fuck. But learn both, because why would you not learn both? That's control. And then you can do either. What resources do you recommend for large orchestral writing? Christ. How about, I've said this before. Jesus. Copland, Stravinsky, Shostakovich, Schumann, Holst, Faya, all of them, Bernstein, just you go on the whole, whatever they're playing, whatever the symphony orchestras that are trying to sell tickets to get people still to come see them, all those pieces. And you can get scores from Boozy and Hawks right on Sheet Music Plus, transcribe the shit out of them, spend the rest of your life doing that, for sure. Is it just me, or does it feel a little wrong when a composer who doesn't read or play or anything conducts their own music? Well, first of all, it's not wrong. Everybody laughs behind their back and calls them douchebags. I know that because I know all the players, and they just they don't even pay attention to them. That guy's just up there waving a stick. Conducting is no fucking joke. There's like 4 guys on the planet who are any good at it, and the rest of them are all douches. That's why I won't stand on the podium. So I've been listening to those stories for 30 years. And I was like, okay, I'm not standing up in that poem until I know what the fuck I'm doing. It looks like this, it's not this. And most of the players will tell you they aren't not paying attention to that guy at all. That's not wrong. It's the guy who looked like a supreme douche. You know what it looks like? It looks like Guitar Hero. But even the Guitar Hero isn't plugged in. That's what it looks like. Okay, hey, you're conducting. So you are. You're a little conductor, you are. It's nice. It's humiliating. You start with piano when you compose before you put on people. Well, it's at the same time. It's right here. When I did this little thing. As I talk about my orchestral classes, if I'm going to orchestrate it, all the orchestration is built into it based on all sorts of things. But at that point, it's like, okay, well, what are we waiting for? The orchestration is built in. Based on the piece, based on what it is. How would you, like this piece, for example, is a piano piece. The discussion of, all right, what instruments are going to play that? How about piano? Like, how are you going to torture yourself and figure, maybe this will be harp arpeggiation and I'll put a woodwind thing there? Why? Why? You want to do some glue chords, that makes some sense. Some string quiet stuff maybe if you want to. But, taking the cues from what the orchestration is. When I got up into this stuff, easily could be woodwinds. Flute. Could be all kinds of stuff because of the range and where the tonality of it is and all that. But that first part, that'd be piano. Mike, do you have any advice for composers who write more traditional film music? Make sure that you are aware that the more traditional stuff is structure-based. It's not devices. It's not a particular harmony or vocabulary. Jerry Goldsmith's general harmonic vocabulary has almost nothing in common with John Williams' basic general go-to default vocabulary, but they both understand symphonic structure. Now, the problem is that films aren't made in a way to capitalize on that structure anymore, which is the biggest difference between film scores today and film scores of yesterday. It's not the sounds, it's the structure. But if you really want to learn to write that way, then you need to be able to write symphonically, where you can take a simple ideas or motifs and develop them over movements, say 3-act structure over 90 minutes, 120 minutes. That's, if you really want to write that way, that's inexorably linked to the music. It is not the sounds or the chords or the devices of the orchestration. It's the structure. Should those composers adapt to what's popular or stick to what we love, even though it's not currently in vogue? Well, that's a question of whether or not you want to work in an industry or you want to write music that you want to write for people who want you to write that kind of music and will pay you for it. So my answer is, that's why I don't write film music. I wanted to be a film composer by the time I was 5 years old. What it turned out to be was that what I actually wanted to do was write the kind of music they don't write anymore for the kind of films they don't make anymore. That's the truth. I didn't know that was going to happen. But I don't even go to movies hardly anymore. So that's why I don't write film music. Because it's like, well, listen, these aren't films really. It's not the same thing. And the music is so. But I'm not beholden to an industry. I don't want to work in films. I wanted to write a kind of music. So now I write that kind of music. Because there's still millions of people who want that kind of music. It won't pay better than a film industry, whatever. Anyway. So change if you want to work in an industry. Otherwise, tell the industry to go fuck itself and write the kind of music that you like and get your audience. Go find your people. Your people are out there. There's 8 billion people. Your audiences are out there who love exactly what you do, exactly the way you want to do it, and will pay out whatever you want for it. You're not going to find them if you're busy, working on these other projects. They're going to take all the fun out of your music. So balance it that way. But, don't try to make somebody into a believer. Fuck that. You can't do that. It's not going to work. If a director's already in a film, already doesn't know how to use music, doesn't already have it all worked out, you're not going to teach him the value of it. Fuck that. You're burning up all your energy for writing. So don't do that. My advice. Just a continuation. It seems that there's so much write your own epic score. Well, it's not epic because you can't, there's no contrast in it. Without a contrast, without small, there is no big. It's not epic. It's the same. It's just the same fucking one piece over and over again. It's all boring too. With tutorials with 20 instrument legato instead of really digging into arranging. Yeah, well, that's what my classes are for. We're the antidote to all that. Mike, you mentioned Stravinsky and Shostakovich. What makes them great? What exactly is it? The craft? It's the craft. Beyond. This is what I'm saying. None of us have any right. We can't talk about what's good music and not. Who the fuck? If somebody's listening to a piece of music and it makes their world and tears are streaming down their face and they want to listen to it every day, we have no right or grounds to say that that's not great music. We would kill to be able to have that kind of effect on people. All that is purely subjective, and there are great pieces of music that we will never enjoy. So we take that out of the equation. We take all the subjectivity out of the equation, and we bring it back to the one thing we can all control, which is intent. That if we're writing a type of music, it's not because we can't write other stuff. It's because we've chosen that. Now we're in control of our life. So what makes them great is truly that they had choices, that they were expressing not because of a lack of craft. I mean, they had an excess of craft. But those were choices. I want to write this type of music. I want to write these tonalities. Yeah, I could write this. Yeah, I could write this. I could do all kind of stuff. I could write it. Sure, but I don't like that kind. But I could. Okay. So what makes them great is the fact that what you hear is exactly what they wanted to do, not the only thing they could do. That cannot be said about the vast majority of composers today. The vast majority. Got to be in the high Vegas odds, 99th percentile of people writing who are in their 20s, haven't even had any life experience yet to talk about anything to their music, but no offense. I mean, I was an ignorant 20-some-year-old too. But writing a thing, you can't say to them, yeah, loved all that shit, loved all that epic ostinato shit. Now over here, we need 30s big band. And they can't go, well, all right, I don't really like that, but I can do it. No, I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it if you put a Winchester to their nuts. That's not in control. That's not the actual craft. So then as soon as that thing dries up, they're fucked. That's why when you have a lot of skills, by the way, that's just a practical concern. If you can orchestrate and you can arrange and you can program and you can do music copying and you can do all this stuff, you always have a gig. Especially for the younger guys they can't do anything. But then even for you, if you're a composer, well, there's no composing gigs this week. But you know what there is? There's a programming gig. I can do a template thing. There's no template gigs this week, but there are arrangements for this museum or whatever. Okay. If you do a lot of stuff, you have a lot of wills to draw from. It's just practical. Mike, I just purchased a few of your Masterclasses. Looking forward to learning from you. I got to hit the hay. Well, you hit that, and because you're gonna need full energy for those classes. Enjoy them too, because they're They're the best I can do to give you all the power. I want you to have all the power, just light rays shooting out your ass. So the orchestration is based on piano voicings, harmonies, and associated melodies. Oh, yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting. Not everybody's been with me every day. In a nutshell, I'll do this in case you haven't heard this. Everybody else, sorry about this. Let me just see if I'm missing anything. Favorite Silvestri score? Back to the Future, right? Okay, I'll answer a couple of these questions. So, when you sit down at the piano, if you write a melody and your melody is you have already told yourself everything that you need to know about the orchestration. You hit it hard, and so it's something. The instruments are going to need to have power, and you already picked the octave. You didn't play, and you didn't play. You played with your two little hands. No matter what else you were hearing, you had to pick the stuff that was most important, and that's what you did. So that tells you, all right, so which instruments? Don't unnecessarily double. Don't look for it to be something else. If you literally just had those two notes and it's forceful, which two instruments have the quality in that exact range? And your brain will probably go, well, that's horn and that's trumpet, probably. Could be other things, but certainly both of them could do that. And you did this. Well, that voicing, well, shit, this could be fucking trombones. It's perfect. Bass, a couple of those, you can put one up there. You can do it but you didn't do that, so don't do that. And this also, voicing works exactly for strings, for, cellos and basses, and in which case you might go with a little arpeggiation stuff, so it rings. That's up to you. But the point is that what you don't go is, all right, and so while that's going, the flute will go up here, unless there's a real compelling reason for it. If that's really what you wanted, you would have played it like that. If you find yourself playing, and if you find yourself doing that, clearly you're trying to communicate the idea that there's this arpeggiation motion. So you wouldn't just have the strings holding chords. Because that's not what you played. You could feel that you needed some motion. You might literally interpret that to harps doing that arpeggiation, or it might be strings arpeggiation. But what you wouldn't do is put block chords where your default expression was something arpeggiated. Unless you weren't paying attention to what you did. So this is a very, very brief version of what's in orchestration 1 and 2. But it's about the idea that so often the orchestration, you've already actually told yourself what it needs to be. And once those key elements are down, once those focused elements as piece to piece, as portions of the piece are put down, that's when, and that's only when, you should then go, all right, but do we actually, once we've got the, once you're like, that's what I need, okay, that's what I need. That's it. Got my trumpets, got my trombone. All right. Do we need that? Yeah, we can do that. That's important. We'll put that on top. I couldn't have played all three if I only had two hands. I got the most important stuff down. But that's not just an arbitrary decision. The first stuff is handled first. That's why you can take any piece, any giant, huge piece, and you can actually play the two-handed version of it. That's the way they're usually written, and you can feel the essence of the piece no matter what it is. So writing on paper and recording everything and then recording as a mock-up is faster in my experience? Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. Although usually, actually, writing on paper and going to the stands with live players faster. However, even when I'm going in a workstation, actually being able to see things even broken out and voicing stuff allows for, for the complex internal motion and orchestration stuff, so I don't have to try to figure it out in this abstract domain where they're cross tracks. The caveat being is that if your music is... So why the fuck are you going to paper with that? Go to workstation. So if your music is so simple that you could basically just improv it into the thing and be done, then yeah. But if it's a music of any dynamics and complexity, then no. Who are we to judge? I mean, well, we're individuals with opinions. So yeah, I mean, like I said, these concepts about orchestration are that's what comprise the bulk of my orchestration philosophy, and it's not just a philosophy. I mean, it's just what we do. We just tend to think, okay, well, orchestration is some other process. But one of the most important things that I learned early in my career was that orchestration and composition were inexorably linked, and that was a very different message than they were telling students when I was at college. You know, where they had an idea of like, you have an idea, now orchestrate it. To me, there's something fundamentally disingenuous about that. This expression, is a different compositional expression than they have entirely different emotional contexts, entirely different. It's not just that idea orchestrated. It's a different idea. Compositionally, they're inexorably linked. It matters how you say something. I love you! That's a different thing you're saying. So the context, the intent, the meaning can't be separated from the way it's said. That is a philosophy which has never steered me wrong. And it's also made it simpler. Because a lot of times it's like, well, what am I doing here? What am I doing? If I'm voicing like this, if I'm going, why can't that just be it? It's right there, That could be the literal voicing. It doesn't have to be more than that. 6:07. I think I need to. It's time for me to put nutrients into my little social experiment in there. When will I announce the upcoming Unleashed? The COVID Strikes Back. Yes, I'd love to take part on that. It was pure luck. I was still awake at this time to see a live Kestrel. Well, when we do the Unleashed, I think we start around 10 or 11 in the morning. We try to find a place that most of the world is up. And you will not miss it if you're subscribed to the channel. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. You'll find out, and then I'll put up a notice, and I'll say when it is. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, you missed it. You'll be plenty of time. I'll give you some time to do it because I think people need at least a week to put their stuff together, and we'll do a little end of days Unleashed. The COVID Strikes Back. Anyway, so I think that's it. What is it? Friday? Saturday? What day is this? Tuesday? What month are we in? It's 2020? Is that what we're in? I'll try to write another piece for tomorrow. I've had 3 deaths in the last week. My grandmother died last week, or 2 weeks, maybe it was last week. And then my girlfriend's mother died a few days after that. And then family friend died. There's all this death going. None of it's COVID. COVID's made no appearance, but there's all these people dying. So just as it is, Christmas is tomorrow. But anyway, so as it is, I have not been literally every day. It's been a couple of days. I had other things to do, but I will try to keep writing. But in the same, but remember, I'm writing to inspire you guys to write. So be writing. Go on to Red Band, post your stuff, work with each other, and You know what I don't think anybody's done is I don't think anybody's done any transcriptions of these pieces, and there's at least 7 of them now. So I'd like to see maybe somebody transcribe them. Not for me, but because if you transcribe, not only do you have a thing you can ask the guy. See, that's the best. You can transcribe something. You go, okay, I figured it out. I think this is why you did this. Is that why you did it? And I can go, yeah, or no, and then you can learn something. So those are all good candidates. But also be writing. What are you gonna do? Listen to me talk all the time? You can. But to be more useful, you go learn something. All right. Red Band, REDBANNED. Right. Somebody give them a link. It's our forum. It's my composition forum. I started my own little forum. Just Just like a little place, a little corner in the earth where the only reason anybody would ever be there is to learn to be a better composer. And it's also an extension of all the philosophies that I talk about in my masterclass, both in terms of writing music and also about the sort of auteur theory that I believe in very much, where that to the question about our unique voices, where allowing our personal selves to come through to work and having a play, because everybody's living in a world now where they police everything that they say. Everything's wrong think and wrong say, and everybody's afraid to put their opinions or do anything because they'll get shouted down on social media, or they'll have to pack everything up in their desk and get fired. So, but that's not good for art or any of us or anybody or anything, actually. So my little forum is a place where you can say anything you want about anything you want. And the only thing we ever ask of people is bring an argument. Because if you have an argument, you have something to say, now we have a discussion. But we don't ever shy away. It doesn't really happen, but we don't shy away from any of the things that have raw material for us to write music from. Anything people feel strongly or passionate about, religion, sex, politics, anything. Well, to me, it's a crime. Artistic forums, people say we don't discuss these things here. That's like literally where art comes from. It's like half the reason there is art is to fucking put a context in a thing to get in our hands dirty. You can't talk about them? Well, no, because nobody here is really fucking adults. No, really what that is nobody there is really focused on art. That's the problem. Because if they were, then just from a self-preservation standpoint, they'd want to be getting in there because that's where they're going to get their material. So our forum is a place where everybody has to use their real names. That's one thing I did. Turned out that solved like 99% of problems. Accountability. Yeah, who are you? Who the fuck are you? Put your thing out. We're all there. Everybody's exposed. Everybody's doing thing. We're all in it together, all trying to get better, and that's all we're trying to do, trying to help each other. That's it. Make a little friendly competition and a safe space to air opinions, to think stuff, to find the raw material from which we're all going to write our art. There, if nowhere else. And what's funny is that, just sort of like you'd figure, I have a forum where you got people who are all trying to improve their lives and improve themselves. And everybody's names are out, so they can't just hide behind the cowboy internet shit of anonymity. There's never been any fucking drama on my forums. That's since the day we launched it. None. And everybody there's got strong opinions about everything. Everybody's real cool with each other. Zero. No. Other forums got to write all these fucking rules. They got to put all these. Don't go into this forum. It's all going to be drama. So. Everybody's cool. Everybody's cool. That's the only rule. Be cool. Learn stuff. So that's what the forum is for. So I couldn't find it anywhere, so I made it. It's very small, because it's going to be small. How many people really are trying to... Not that many. In the world, even that many. How many people every day, whatever their job is, are doing the fuck out of that job. Doing it like it was the last day on that earth. Like almost nobody, right? Imagine what kind of a nirvana we'd be living in if half the people did the very best they could half the time. They don't. So it's always going to be a small number of people actually really trying to improve, trying to be better, it's always going to be small. But that's good. That's our people. So if you think you're one of our people, come. And, we make a little community, a little composer community, like our great-great-grandfathers had. We can all help each other, lift each other up, get better. Why not? All right. Yeah, you know what I mean? Safe space, meaning it's precisely because it's not safe. You know what I mean? But it turns out that's the safest place. So yeah, there's no political correctness is a fucking Maoist term. I don't even know if they know that. It's fucking, it's anyway. So no, there's none of that. But we don't have any idiots on the forum either. It's like I love to hear opinions, anything opinion. Just okay, let's hear your argument. All right, let's hear it. That's a good place to go too, because if you feel strongly about it, that's where your work will come from. All right. That's it for now, guys, girls, ladies, all that stuff. We will probably see you tomorrow. And, just Keep those likes coming, those dislikes coming. Draco, we're signing off. Anything you want to say before
Stop disliking when I'm on screen.
we? See, but now you gotta learn, man. This is how people are. Now that's like now they can't stop. Now they have to just. They're just like it's like just because you said that. See, look at that. See, that's how it is. See, you got yeah. That's just because they want to let you know they didn't really mean it. They just fucking around with you. But this is the thing. You got to learn people.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? Got to learn how people are. People are not complicated. They like to think they are.
Hi. I heard you shutting down, so I'm like.
Yeah, thought you'd come and see if maybe we have some Daddy Draco time.
Yeah.
All right. So see everybody tomorrow.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye.